Welcome everybody to my channel. My name is Nairi and this channel is all about adoption, fostering, childhood trauma, and this video has been requested by Mary, my wonderful member. So Mary, here we go. So I just want to say at the beginning, these are just my experiences, how I feel about the subject, not professional advice. So today we're going to talk about violence with adopted children, and it's a subject that I think lots of people don't like talking about, because they don't like thinking about a child that they're going to adopt maybe being violent and having very big outbursts, meltdowns, whatever you want to call it. And this can happen with even very young children. Very young children can still cause lots of issues with violence. So the first thing I want to say is what I think might be the reasons for it. So let's get that out of the way and let's talk about what could be the solution, or what could be some ideas that I think might work and it's worth a try. So first of all, that one of the main reasons why we found our younger son, because it's our younger son that has the violent outbursts, gets like it, is because he's highly anxious. Okay, so I know that sounds obvious, but there are things that cause that for him. And one of the things that causes that is being away from myself and my husband. And he will readily admit that now. He's nearly 14 and he will say, I do get anxious when I'm away from you. I miss you when I'm at school. And, you know, basically just doesn't cope unless he has that closeness. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is he likes absolutely predictability, and when he's at home he can have that. He knows when it's going to be a meal, he knows what he can do and what he can't do, even if he tries to do the opposite. He has a high level of routine predictability at home. When he's out of the house, it really doesn't matter where he is, that predictability sort of suddenly goes, and that raises the anxiety as well. The next thing to say about him is his inability to cope with other people and friendships and understanding them. So I see my husband and I have learnt to read the signs from him and to interpret the world for him. So he's not autistic. He's had a diagnosis for early childhood trauma, developmental trauma, and that has some similar aspects. So he really struggles to know what other people might want and how to interact with them, and sometimes he is very much focused on what he wants, and so he really struggles with other children, other people. But actually it's his own age group that he struggles with greatly. And the last reason I want to say, well, there is one other thing as well, but the last thing I want to say is just developmental stuff in general, like not being at the level that peers are at and having that trauma in the early days, which means that, you know, sometimes they can go from 0 to 100 and just snap and just be like fine 1 minute and the next minute it's just horrendous. And I think that's a developmental thing. And just finally to pop in there, tiredness, and all of these things can cause tiredness. Yeah, so when he's really tired, that will be another trigger. So those are the things that I have seen in my son over the years, and we've had him since he was just coming up to 2 and he's now just coming up to 14. All right, so these are the things that I think could be tried. So Mary's sort of said that she is getting the meltdowns at home and they're having the meltdowns at school, and they're increasingly struggling to cope with those things. So here's a few ideas I've got which could be tried, and Mary, it depends what situation you're in as to if any can work. And I'm more than happy to go into more detail in any one of them on like more of a personal video if you'd like. So the first thing I would suggest is there a way of reducing the timetable for your child? So is there a way at all of not having such a long week? Now, this may not be possible depending on what your work schedule is, but if there's any way at all of cutting down even one afternoon a week so that your child can come home early and just have the pressure taken off, then maybe that's an option. The next thing I want to say is who is working with your child. So this is something that's happened with us before. Now, our son, he needs really firm boundaries. Okay, so it could be that the person working with your child is not actually skilled enough to work with your child. So it could be one way or the other. Either they're too firm and they're not giving enough flexibility and taking into account that early childhood trauma and sort of a therapeutic way of working, or, and this is the case of our son, they're too nice. So he had one worker that he used to just wrap around his little finger. And this is when he was quite young. This was when he was in what we call our primary school. I'm going to say he was probably about 6 or 7. And actually the person working with him was a really lovely young lady, and he just run circles around her. Yeah, so she wasn't the right one for him, because he needs to know yes or no really, really clearly. So that's the next thing. The next idea for you is transitional objects. I'm sure you've seen my videos on transitional toys or objects. So let me run through a few options. So I think, you know, your child is still quite young. So is there a type of bear, toy, whatever, that has a story from home? So you're writing in a book about what bear does at home, can be anything you like, and then what bear does at school, so that you can connect the two. And can the worker or the school work with you on that, so that bear sits on the shelf and bear automatically reminds your child of home? Because it's the scary thought of, how long am I at school for? When am I going to get home? Is anything going to happen to my person that I'm building attachment with? I'm just not comfortable here. Okay, so that's another idea. Another idea, which is a bit more in depth and is going to need the school to kind of really, really work with you, is an audio book where you record messages for your child throughout the day. So I'm sure when your child first goes to school, there's a bit of a kerfuffle about leaving you, or, you know, anxiety, but then they get into the school day, and maybe for the first hour it's okay, but then they need to understand timings. How long are they going to be away from you? It's similar to the bear. So can you record messages on an audiobook? Hi, it's me again. How's your day going? It must be break time now. You're doing well. Our pet whatnot says hello to you today. Just little messages recorded on an audio. Is that a possibility? Another thing is really digging deep to find out what the anxiety is around with your child. So you might already know that some of the things that I'm saying to you are some of the things, okay? But sometimes we slightly get it wrong, and sometimes we need to dig a little bit deeper. So let me give you an example. My son's been extremely difficult over the last few days. He is always difficult, okay? I'm going to put it that he is always difficult, but he seemed to be really off kilter. And let me just tell you a quick story about the walk that we had. So we went for a beautiful walk out in the countryside to go and see a waterfall. But I noticed that he was very random with his conversation, and you may notice this sort of thing happening as well. So his anxiety level seemed really high, considering we're just going for a walk. And he would just be on one subject, on another subject, on another subject, and none of it was connected. And I was trying to get back up the hill off this really long walk, and I'm not the most healthy. I tried to be, tried to keep going with the others, but I'm not the most healthy. So we're on this really steep incline, and I said, you're going to have to leave me to walk up the hill, because I can't talk to you at the same time. And he kept going to my husband and then coming out, can I go and talk to mum? Can I go and talk to mum? Can I go? And I was like, something's not right. Something's not right. I just felt it in my, in my bones. So we got in the car and I said, what is wrong? All the way here, you've been kind of wittering, all the way on the walk, you're very unrelaxed. What is wrong? And then he came out with it. And it wasn't just about school. It was about a change of timetable at school. And we'd had an extra day off. So he felt like he'd been away from school and friends for a while, and he was worried about getting back into it and a change of timetable. And that was all it was. It was quite a small thing, and it was causing him the whole of this extra bank holiday to be super anxious, and that's how anxious he gets. So if your child is anything like mine, then the smallest tiny little bit of change will throw them off kilter. So what is the classroom like? How many changes does your child have to deal with in the day? What evidence is there in the classroom that your child is being told what is going to happen next and what the expectations are of them, and they're eased into transition and change? So the big question is the school right for them? Okay, now I can do an extra video for you, Mary, so we can talk once we've been through all this video. This is a general one for the public, but I can go into more detail and we can chat a bit more. You're a member, so we can do that. So is the school right for your child? Now this is a big decision. I realise this. We've been in schools where I think that they've accommodated really well for the boys, and then we've been in schools where they've tried to make the boys fit around what they want. So is the school right? Is the helper right, but is the school right? If the answer to that is no, then maybe start looking at what your options are. Because if you can't homeschool, and I'm not advocating homeschooling, I am just saying if you can't, okay, because homeschooling brings its own issues. For many people, it's an answer, but for many people, it's not an answer because it brings its own issues as well. So if school needs to happen, is what I'm saying, then is it the right school? Are there any options for you out there that you can change? Is there a possibility that when your child's at home, you need to change the routine? Because just say the school is the right school, the helper's the right helper, the hours are what you need to do, and you can't see anything that really needs to change. And all of the above things that I've said to you, like, well, we've tried that, Nairi, you know, we've taken a toy in, we've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried everything you said. Then the only other thing is to just look really tightly at the home routine and see if there's anything at all you can change, anything that you could just ease the situation. Do they need to do less at home? Do they need to do one less club? Do they need to chill out more? What is it? Is there anything at all that you could change? Or is anything you can introduce into the home that's going to give an extra little bit of therapy? That person they love, that thing they love to do, could you introduce more of that? When it comes down to resources, because that's what you've asked for, I can't think of any resources per se other than what I've explained to you now. There's no one thing that you could really use to really help the situation, because your child's quite young and it might be that therapy is not the right time yet. But we did have therapists, so I'm going off on another kilter. We did have a therapist with our boys all the way through primary school, which she was called a drama therapist, but in reality what she was doing is using physical products for the boys to create their own little images and little things out of. So it was, for me, it was more like an art therapist, and they used to come back with the same stuff all the time. Things around food, things around locked doors and the home being safe, and that she allowed them to create those things and bring them home. So is there an option for some sort of therapy in school? For some sort of therapy at home, is there an option for that? Dealing with a meltdown as it happens is a whole different story. It's a whole different video. I have made some on it, so check out the playlist around anger and some of the videos around anger and see if you can tap into those. But again, I can make another video around actually what you do when a meltdown happens. It's different for us because we've got a teenager. But I hope that helps Mary, and I hope that helps anybody else out there watching. If you're interested in this channel, please subscribe. If you think you're interested in going a little bit deeper with me, then please check out membership, and I will see you on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.